Four, three, two, one. We are live again on YouTube with our Jean-Luc Brunel series with our French correspondent, Fred. Huge thank you for coming back on, Fred. People have just been blown away by your level of knowledge. And just let me expand a little bit before I hand it over to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you've not been watching this series, this is part 3. They're multi-hour episodes, and the spotlight has really been on Epstein, Maxwell, Prince Andrew. There's not much been reported in the Western-speaking world about Jean-Luc Brunel. Yet Jean-Luc Brunel, according to victims, Epstein was boasting that he slept with over 1,000 of Jean-Luc Brunel's girls. So you can imagine the enormity of the damage that Jean-Luc Brunel caused to thousands of girls if Epstein was joking like that. And we have no idea. We were just scratching the surface with what we were hearing until we had Fred on the channel. Now, Fred is working with a team of activists in France. These guys are scouring the French-speaking world for everything and anything they can get their hands on relating to Jean-Luc Brunel, because in terms of co-conspirators, this guy is really up there, and we want to see him be brought to justice. So in part 1 of this series, we went over Jean-Luc Brunel's history, how he grew up, how he got into the modeling business. And in part 2, we were building further on his relationship with Epstein. So while I share this link then on my social media, Fred is going to bring everybody up to speed on where we left off last time, and maybe just say a little bit about himself again for people who are not familiar with who he is and what he does. Thanks, Fred.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sean, and thanks. It's really a pleasure to be back on your channel, and I think that's a great opportunity for the French to come forward, as we've done over the last 2 live streams, trying to update people on what Jean-Luc Brunel has been up to, and obviously investigating his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but also many other people. So he was a tycoon in the modeling agency. He was a name, absolutely well respected amongst many big names, big fashion house around the world. And his career has been unfortunately tarnished by many events. And it seems that Jean-Luc Brunel has always the name has always popped up associated with sexual abuse or sexual misconduct, whether it was in France, but also in the United States. So we follow his career, as you said. We've looked into his past, trying to better understand this character, because he is truly a character. And then during the second live stream, we had the opportunity to look a little bit more about his setup with his brother and Etienne Desrats, the investors that actually allowed Jean-Luc Brunel to open the company Next Management with Kate Fates. And then we found out during the second live stream that this partnership, this venture eventually fell out simply because Jean-Luc Brunel was again misbehaving and starting to suck all the best models out of Next Management towards Kering Models of America, which was basically a spin-off of Kering Model in Paris, which he was the owner, and not the founder, but the owner for sure. So we looked into that. We looked a little bit, the behavior, starting to understand his relationship, and more importantly, when he started to hook up again with Ghislaine Maxwell, because she's obviously in New York. She's already hooked up with Jeffrey Epstein, and Jean-Luc Brunel happened to arrive in New York, and very quickly, we're going to be able to see that these two are going to come back together, and eventually this trio is going to be formed. And this is really the big question that everybody has asked, as to when Jean-Luc Brunel met Jeffrey Epstein. So we discussed that a little bit last time. What I could probably add is just to say that Jean-Luc Brunel met Epstein at a fashion show. That's what we discovered. And the year that we came up with was 1994, 1995. So we're still a little bit trying to clarify that. But he definitely, by no later than 1996, these guys were together and they were already discussing. There was a lot of discussions about setting up a modeling agencies together. So these three characters are absolutely, it's a very toxic relationship. And we're going to today look into how this relationship evolved and how far this entire scandalous behavior went. So I think it's going to be interesting.
So let me just go over then. Last time we left off with Jean-Luc Brunel. He was running out of cash and he was living in the Trump Tower in Manhattan. Epstein opened him a $1 million credit line, and there was an effort to create a partnership with Elite Model Agency. This plan never saw the day. Trump wanted to launch his own model agency, was also on the project. He carried on with Trump Model Management, later shortened to Team Management, which was a new...
That's right. I think, Sean, what is important to understand is that before MC Square was granted this $1 million credit line, there was another project, as you just said. It's the project of establishing a model agency in Paris, actually, but also in New York. So an agency that would have a contract with Elite Model Management, which still, I think of today, is the largest model agency in the world. So there was ongoing discussions. Obviously, Brunel's role in this is to bring the connection with Paris and his knowledge of Gérald Marie, which is at the time the European head of Elite Model Management in Paris. So this was an ongoing discussions, and the company was never to be called MC Squared. The company was to be called E-Management, E for Epstein. So that was the project at the beginning. But then obviously the discussions were very abruptly stopped because probably Elite Models done their a bit of digging and their homework and find out that Jeffrey Epstein already had previous conviction and obviously had was a person of interest in some sex trafficking and abuse of young girls. So when they found out that, obviously they pulled out because they didn't want to be associated with the guy. So the plan fell out, and Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein's are still friends, and they really have a very tight relationship at that time. And naturally what's going to happen is Jeffrey Epstein's going to agree for MC Squared to be formed in order to start basically building up a network of modeling agencies, whether it's going to be in Miami, in New York, and eventually in Tel Aviv, in Israel. So this was the beginning of Brunel basically living at the Trump Tower, running out of money, still having a pretty upper hand lifestyles, and obviously the money is running out. The investors are gone. He needs money. Epstein is bankrolling the operation. And this is where we're going to see the birth of MC Squared. So let's not forget that Jean-Luc Brunel in the background had a company called Carin Models of America. So what he's going to do is basically turn it down, because obviously his name is appearing in many media, in documentaries, and many different, his name keep on popping up, in France as well as in the United States. And his attitude, his behavior towards the models is unacceptable for many in the fashion world, but also in the modeling industry, especially the photographers give a lot of, testimonies. A lot of newspapers and magazines have been speaking to them, and they all say the same thing. Jean-Luc Brunel was out of line with models, and he was just treating them like meat, basically. And that's the reason why Carin Models has asked Jean-Luc Brunel, and the decision was made that to stop using the name Carin Models, and Jean-Luc Brunel had to open MC Squared. And that's where we basically find ourselves today, and we're going to unpack from there.
Wasn't it one of Jean-Luc Brunel's associates that brought Melania Trump to America?
I mean, Jean-Luc Brunel has a talent to associate himself with some very, very weird characters, and Paolo Zampoli is one of them. Paolo Zampoli, a lot of people have read a little bit, who's describe him as someone that is a model scout or someone into the fashion world, someone that has a model agency, which is absolutely not true. Zampoli was he was someone that kind of a matchmaker. He was someone that organized events, you know, so he was known to organize very high-end party, elite party. He was someone, you know, that you will see in the major events in New York. So he was a name. He's Italian origin, and the story behind Melania Knaus, which eventually will become Melania Trump, is that they met each other during a fashion show, fashion event in I think it was in Rome or Milan, one of these two destinations, and Paolo's going to see something in her and going to start to promote the idea of her coming to New York. He's going to actually even pay the ticket for her to come, organize a visa to come to New York, and starting to introduce her to different modeling agencies. So he's a bit of a matchmaker kind of guy. You know, I don't think he's at the level of Listerman in Russia, but he's still, you know, he had a bit of a weird reputation, and he's a funny character. I've read some really interesting stuff about him, saying that he's also was sometime associated with the intelligence community as well. And we also find out that he ended up being the USA ambassador for the Dominican Republic, and he doesn't even have the citizenship of the country. So he's definitely an interesting character. Anyway, that's the story for Zampoli, and obviously we know that on many occasions, Paolo, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Donald Trump himself were used to go out together. So Jean-Luc Brunel knew Donald Trump quite well. They used to go out and party together. They were caught on many occasions chasing girls in this, you know, upper high-end bars in Soho and so on. So these guys were, they were having fun together, that's for sure.
One question that's come up time and time again is if Jean-Luc Brunel was procuring all of these girls and sending them so far away to America from Europe, there was basically a pipeline. Now, I know how difficult it is to get into America. So how on earth were all these girls getting visas authorized? Was the top of this pyramid so powerful that they could just get rubber stamps for all these girls to come into the country?
Well, absolutely. As I said from the beginning, when you look into the Epstein case, and obviously Jean-Luc Brunel and all the co-conspirators, the logistic is the key, because this cannot happen without a serious logistics, a serious ability to be able to secure a visa, and obviously to be able to travel with underage girls. And that's what MC Squared was all about, is to justify, it was a mean to an end, allowing basically with documents from the parents, allowing these girls to come. Some of them at the beginning of MC Squared were coming under touristic visa. So these girls were just tourists. And then some of them, those that will have obviously a higher caliber, will eventually be secured with what they call a model visa, you know, a professional modeling career, and they're traveling for modeling purposes. And the agency will provide basically clarity and the structures that allows to confirm, and that allows basically this logistic to take place. Now, when you're transporting minors, obviously you need a woman to accompany the minor, or you need the parents to accompany the minor. And as I said before, I believe that this is the reason why the private jets were used to actually have these girls pick up and entering the airspace of the United States and entering in Lower Side Airport, where obviously Epstein must have had a connection, because there's no way you can enter the United States with underage girl without, you know, serious credential, and more importantly, the visa has to be there. So I think they were only traveling where all the visa were ready, and definitely Jean-Luc Brunel was in charge of that via MC Squared, and he had people in the office of Miami, but also in New York, taking care of these particular visa issues for Epstein's, and it was not always going the right way. Sometimes it was refused. Epstein will get absolutely furious with Jean-Luc Brunel, will get upset with the office, especially in New York. There was a lot of mishap. One with Nadia Marcinkova, we know that she was refused a renewal of a visa, and that Epstein got really furious about that. It's funny because she never works one day as a model for any of the agencies. So there was a lot of things around the visa industry, and Jean-Luc Brunel obviously is definitely involved in that. Also, he's always trying to say that he wasn't, but he was involved with the visa operation. And most of these girls will eventually have something to do with Epstein.
So I got asked a lot of questions about Nadia. What's your interpretation of her story?
Well, my interpretation, I think I want to keep it simple with Nadia. It's a story of a girl that's going to be basically pass on to Epstein. Epstein is going to recruit her from one of, we don't know if it's Brunel or not. I could not say that for sure, but she's definitely was given by the parents via a network or something like that. But she was provided to Epstein at a very young age, and Epstein will keep her. And she was always described as a sex slave. I don't think she was just a sex slave. I think she was a girl that was given the opportunity. She's extremely beautiful, and I think Epstein's just put her under a wing. Abused her like that's what he was doing anyway. That's what he was charged and accused of. But he groomed her and made her a partner in crime. That's why a lot of victims that came forward and, you know, accused Nadia not just being a victim. She doesn't deserve just the title of victim or survivor. She actually took part in the crime. So that's the big debate that a lot of people having online and offline is as to how do we consider a person just a victim, or how we consider someone that has become a victim and turned into a pimp, basically recruiting young girls on behalf of Epstein. It's a very, very delicate, it's a very thin line, and it's not for us to decide that. There is the law in each country to decide what is acceptable and what is not. So having and entertaining this debate is a bit ludicrous. Everybody has different opinion. I will respect everyone's opinion, but at the end of the day, this has to be decided by law. That's why we have laws in our country.
So when this video live stream's done, I'm going to put all the links in the description box of Fred's stuff. I urge you to go down and support him, especially on Twitter, where he's very active. And also I'm going to put links down there for victims such as Maria Farmer and Virginia. Now, Virginia testified that Jean-Luc Brunel was the main supplier of foreign girls, especially from East Europe and South America. We know about the joke, Epstein saying he slept with over 1,000 girls from Jean-Luc Brunel. My question for you, Fred, is, and this was asked something to me recently, and I've been pondering it in the last few days. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about such numbers, how many total victims do you estimate could be out there at the absolute maximum from everything that Brunel, Epstein, and Maxwell did?
This is a very, very tough question, Sean. And the reason for that is you obviously gonna go back to what the discovery process in the United States has provided us with, and we've learned that about 180 Jane Doe came forward. So most of them were directed to the estates, the compensation fund for the estates. So that's basically, as far as I'm concerned, and from the indications of my research and many other investigators, that we're talking not about a couple of hundred young girls. Yeah, this was a real a sex trafficking ring. And I think Jean-Luc Brunel, as I described in the previous live stream as well, was not the only procurer. So if you ask me how many Brunel provided, I think the easiest way to answer this question will be to look at the traffic, how many girls there was going through MC Squared, and the percentage of them will be diverted to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, by the deposition of Marisa Vasquez, we know that at all time, the portfolio of MC Squared was in between 200 and 300 models. So at any moment in time, if you were to look into their portfolio, how many girls were available from MC Squared, we're talking about 200 and 300 girls. So if you take these numbers and you multiply them, and then you start to understand the kind of the flow that you're getting within the agencies, knowing that there's 3 agencies involved, then we are talking about a very, very large number. And then I can add to that also, Sean, that there was not only girls coming for modeling via MC Squared. Jean-Luc Brunel was organizing a lot of pageant beauty contests in South America, all over South America. It was extremely well known by model agencies, and he had her really South American beauty contests and pageants where hundreds of girls will come from across South America. It will come from Colombia, Peru, Ecuador was a big place. And then Brazil was the really one of the major recruitment places for Jean-Luc Brunel. So he had access to an unlimited number of young girls. There's a lot of testimonies and witness testimonies during this pageant saying that Jean-Luc Brunel was seen on many occasions with girls as far as 14, 15 years old in his bedroom, staying in his bedroom. So we know that he had access to girls. Some will say that he was also recruiting via a contact in Rio de Janeiro. He had a contact. It's kind of a pimp young lady that used to bring young girls when Epstein was traveling with him in South America, because we never talk about that, but Epstein were actually judge, was actually participating in this pageant, in this beauty contest. And he will take the Lolita Express and other of these private jets to go to South America to be part of that. So there was a young prostitution network that was available when they were on the spot, but also I think this was the opportunity for them to identify what Epstein wanted. So I think they will probably cherry pick with Jean-Luc Brunel what he thought was a good deal, and then start to organize the visa for them to be brought to the United States. So it was a real organization. They were partner in crime, these two.
All right, would it be an exaggeration, or would it be within realism to say then that over the years, the entire Maxwell, Epstein, Brunel trafficking network, which had tentacles just like you described throughout South America, all these other countries, we've heard from other researchers about Haiti and the neighboring areas of the island. Would it be an exaggeration to say that there could possibly be 10,000 victims out there?
Yeah, I think if you take the entire procurement scheme, including not only Jean-Luc Brunel, but everyone, I think we're talking about way beyond 1,000 girls. I think we're talking about at least minimum 5,000 girls. You have to look also during the period of time you're talking about. When you refer to the Epstein affair or Jean-Luc Brunel, you have to always give a snapshot of which period of time. Now, if you take the overall time from 1996, let's say, all the way down to when Brunel is going to press charges against Epstein. This is a long period of time. So over a period of more than 10 years, you could say that easily 5,000 girls could have been brought via and through the network. And probably if you say 10,000, this is something that definitely could be entertained. Now, to bring to have the number and say, yes, there were 10,000 girls, then obviously you need to understand really how deep this network was and how far, the tentacles, of this octopus, how big the reach is. And I can tell you something is that when you start to research, this case, Jean-Luc Brunel, but also the co-conspirators, you realize that Epstein was connected all over the world, and even in the in the Bahamas and all those places, he had connections everywhere, and really with some extremely wealthy people, which, like himself, most of them are described as predators or sexual kind of addicts. So it's just never end. More you dig, more you find people, more you find them, and more investigation is required. That's why this case is so interesting to the people around the world, is because it's just never ends. And it shows clearly that there was a construct, as Eric Weinstein described so well. There's a construct, and this is a global intercontinental operation. So if we talk about Jean-Luc Brunel is an operator that will use MC squared as a conduct, as a channel to present and to select a certain amount of girls, which eventually will be groomed by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and eventually join the sex trafficking scheme for which they've been accused of. So it's a big one, and it's actually quite scary, to be honest with you, because the resources you need to do and to organize that are actually quite tremendous. You need a lot of money to organize that on a regular basis, involving international destinations, and more importantly, doing this in front of the eyes of the intelligence community at large. So when we are asking, you know, were the intelligence, was the intelligence, or, you know, were people covering for him? The answer is obvious. Of course, people were covering for him. Of course, the intelligence communities, not only the CIA or the FBI or the DGSI in France and other, you know, MI6 in the UK, everybody knew what these guys were all about. But as I say, if he was allowed to do that, this is the real question we need to ask ourselves. Why was he allowed to do that for such a long period of time? What was he protected? What did he add on these people? Or why the Mossad or other maybe potential intelligence agency had on very powerful people like Clintons and Donald Trumps and all these big guys' names that have popped out? You know, what did he had that, you know, allowed him to be protected? That is the real questions we need to ask ourselves. Why was he protected? Who allowed that to happen for such a long period of time? And I'll be honest with you, you know, the prosecution in New York and all the judge, you know, even those that are, they're being given a very hot potatoes here, you know, because it's not an easy case to deal with. And more importantly, we are now seeing a scenario where the government has to investigate the government, and how independent the process is. That's the question we need to ask ourselves. If the FBI is investigating the FBI, the DOJ, we saw recently, I think last week, the DOJ report coming out with saying basically that Alex Acosta, you know, the Attorney General of the Southern District of Florida, he just had a poor judgment, you know. So when you hear these kind of things, you know, if I was a victim of, I would be absolutely outraged, you know. It's absolutely unbelievable, because anybody that has spent a little bit of time investigating this case will tell you that the cover-up started at a very, very, very early stage when Epstein was investigating in El Brio, you know, in Palm Beach, you know, at the El Brio Way residence, you know, and we already know that the material, it was available and made available to the justice system. We know that, for example, Adriana Ross, she came with, I believe, Darren Dyke or maybe Richard Kahn to take all the computers. There was 3 computers that was on the house of Palm Beach. They took all the computers and tried to hide it away, but they were found very quickly. And there's a very interesting information I'm sure people are going to like, is that these computers obviously had hard disk and a lot of evidence on that, on Epstein's life, communications, and so on. And all this information was made available to the defense of Jeffrey Epstein. That's been Alan Dershowitz and all the guys that was hanging around, part of the defense team of Jeffrey Epstein, had access to this material. And then, funny enough, this is when actually the fix took place. This is when the FBI was about to arrest Jeffrey Epstein, and two federal judges went against the arrest and said, no, we're not going to sign a warrant for his arrest. You know, we're just going to go let the thing evolve via the police, and, you know, and then the district attorney, and it was just basically a dead story before even it started. You know, they didn't want, because what they found on this computer must have been really compromising, and so I think they just cannot talk. I mean, this is where the fix, you know, I know at the beginning, a lot of people think this is when the fix is going to come. I think the fix has already started, Sean.
When I see Acosta or hear Acosta now, I just get sick to my stomach thinking about all the victims that came about because of his facilitation. And you mentioned about the government investigating itself. It's as laughable as when the CIA investigated itself for cocaine trafficking, Iran-Contra, and all that kind of situation. So nothing helpful ever comes out of those investigations. Now, yeah. I mean, the reason I was asking you about the numbers of victims, because we hear from the brave victims that have spoken out, which is a fraction of the victim total, people like Maria Farmer, people like Virginia. Please go and support them on Twitter. We hear from them. And I think perhaps we only think then there's a limited number of victims, but there's all the people out there. I mean, Fred is extremely grounded. I've asked him things before. He says, I'm not going to cross that line. I'm not going to exaggerate this. You know, I'm not going to do that. So he's extremely grounded. And for Fred to say that maybe there was at least 5,000 victims, and possibly 10,000 victims really shows the mind-boggling enormity of this situation. And like Fred said, for them to get away with it for so long, the highest echelons of government and society had to be helping as co-conspirators to grease this operation to allow it to run smoothly for so long. And the resources, the logistics, the amount of money, it is absolutely mind-blowing. I think that's another one of the reasons why it remains so fascinating for people.
Yeah, it's definitely, you see, it's like when you start to investigate, and this is probably not my specialty in a certain way, but investigating the pedocriminality and this pedophile ring, you know, which you obviously need to understand the structuring of such a network around the world. You know, mine only one country, you know, we have a massive problem in France with a pedophile ring. You know, we have many borders with obviously Spain, Belgium, Switzerland, and Germany, and these are, you know, pedophile ring that starts in one country, and very quickly they find their partners in other countries, including the United Kingdom. Doing some research in one of the most publicized case in France of a writer, a very well-known writer and very well-respected. It's called Gabriel Matzneff, which had written books and has always been very open about saying and, you know, explicit about his relationship with kids, you know, and so on. And he was for many years supported by ministers, by the, you know, obviously the intellectual, or so-called intellectual community in France. And a lot of people back him up when these guys were raping kids on board of a boat, a small boat that he had, and he would take the kids. They used to call the l'école en bateau, which means the boat school, basically taking young kids and make them discover, you know, the joy of being at sea, and eventually molesting them on the boat. And this went on for years. And then when you investigate into that, you realize that actually these guys were linked with another school in Cornwall in the UK, where some guys, Branson guys, was part of that. He was a teacher, eventually even a headmaster in the UK. And these guys were participating exactly in the same kind of abuse with child on board of this boat, you know, and he had the same concept, and eventually was linked to this pedophile ring with Gabriel Matzneff. So you see, more you dig in, more you realize that pedophile ring is not something that stays at one level. It's not a national, it never is a national matter. It is very quickly, first of all, by the nature of internet and intercontinental issue. So it obviously requires a lot of resources from cybersecurity, from cyber investigation, from the police to really be able to, you know, to size up how big the network is, you know, a lot of money. And I think that's also very underestimated and misunderstood, or probably ill understood from people, than how much money there is in this pedophile ring. There is a lot of money to be made, and they know that. And I think you've had so many guests talking about it. We know how much, you know, they pay for movies, you know, as I say, for $250 all the way up to $1 million for snuff movies. So if that is not an industry, I don't know what it is, you know. So this is why we're seeing this intercontinental phenomenon because of the internet. And then the second part of it, when we're talking about human trafficking, whereby it's going to involve now the physical movement of one person from one country to the next, and likely to be underage, then this is a different operation that requires, as I said, a lot of financing, a lot of protection. This is not a crime you can do unless you are protected. And that's what I've kind of get out of this investigation. This is not possible to do what these guys have done without benefiting from protection.
So you mentioned snuff movies there. My video that's coming out at 7 a.m. tomorrow is actually called "Do Snuff Films Exist?" And I look at a Russian case, really graphic and harrowing, describes how they got the kids, describes what happens. Because a lot of people, since I've been doing the live streams with Ron Swanson on the dark web, have asked, you know, about whether there are actual cases out there of these snuff films, but the kids are procured from the poorest countries in the world. And in this Russian case, they were taken from train stations. They were just like little kids at train stations, nowhere to go, no families, homeless. They promise, to take them, get them a McDonald's or whatever, and next thing they're in some horrific bloody movie. So that video's coming out tomorrow at 7. Okay, so moving back to Epstein then. So there was, I don't know how to pronounce the name of Epstein's former butler at the Palm Beach house. Do you know how to pronounce his name?
Janus.
Janus.
Yeah, Janus.
Did you guys try to get any information about him or any?
Well, he's obviously like everybody else, around Epstein. They're scared. There's, as I said, Epstein has that real skill of surrounding himself with people in a very private manner. So, as I said, it will not just be. It was being part of a family. If you work with Epstein or for Epstein, you are part of a family. That's really the sense of most of the testimonies and that has been given, and the people that I've had the chance to talk to, they all come up with the same thing. It's been part of a family. It'll look after you. If you got a problem, it'll make it personal. This is not a corporate company where you have to go through different echelon to talk to Jeffrey Epstein. He's he deals directly with you. If you get a problem, you can go straight to him. So he makes everything, all relationship, extremely personal. And people, that's how people are attached to him. That's why he was allowed to do so many things, because people were so attached to him. He has that father figures, and these young girls come from broken families, and the people that works with him, I think they all knew what was going on, and they all say, "Oh, we've never seen something out of place," but they all knew what was going on. And Janus Banasiak, for example, and he actually didn't want to talk much, but he spoke at an early stage in 2010, and he indicated that Epstein and Brunel were actually extremely close friends. So we know that relationship is true. They were absolutely close friends. He will give details about the Frenchman, Jean-Luc Brunel going into El Brio, the Palm Beach properties, and cooking in the kitchen like he lives there, like he spent time there, that he's absolutely feeling 100% home, when he actually has a house on the San Marino Islands, and then later on we'll have a condo, kind of a penthouse on the West Avenue. So he had his own properties, but he spent time there like he's part of the family. So that's what Janus Banasiak is providing to us. Although he doesn't want to talk, when he starts talking about what happened there, he'll confirm that Jean-Luc Brunel was really at home, and at home not only here but also in the New York mansion as well. He was home. He spent a lot of time living with Jeffrey Epstein. These guys were really pals.
And there's a famous message. I'm just going to go over that now because there's been various interpretations of it. So Jean-Luc Brunel, they were very close. He was phoning Epstein's residence regularly and leaving messages for Jeffrey, and here's one of them from 2005. He has a teacher to teach you to speak Russian. She is 2 times 8 years old, not blonde. Lessons are free, and you can have the first one today if you call. And the consensus is, because some people speculated that 2 times 8 meant 2 8-year-olds, but that was not within the pattern of what these guys were doing. The consensus is that 2 times 8 meant a 16-year-old that was being procured for massages of a sexual nature.
Yes, absolutely. There's actually a funny story about this message that I don't know if people have heard of, but when Jean-Luc Brunel was actually thought being in Brazil, in South America, just after the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein in August on the tarmac of Teterboro. Jean-Luc Brunel was obviously not in Brazil. He was in France because he knew the hit was on, and he had to cover himself, and one of the story and one of the question that some journalist was asking him, because he was actually spoken to at the time. So that was funny. People are talking him being in Brazil when he's actually meeting journalists, So he was asked about this message, and the journalist in France asked him, say, what is the story with this 2 times 8, young Russian teacher. What's the story behind that? And his answer was that the person that took the message actually took the message in a wrong way. And he meant that that lady was 64 years old, even in 8 by 8, something like that. So anyway, it was never referring to a 2 times 8, which, people have come to believe that he was a 16 years old kid. Of course, he was a 16 years old kid, but even when he was interrogated, he gave a real silly answer, and you're supposed to believe him. And as I say, if Brunel was telling the truth, then there would be absolutely no reason for him to hide, or at least not to come publicly and say, look, this is what happened and this is the story. But because there's so huge amount of evidence, that are stacking up against him, whether it's from the deposition made by, or the affidavits that we can read from Virginia Giuffre, but also other people involved in the circle. Clearly, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Jean-Luc Brunel not only facilitated the traffic, but he was actually literally recruiting, not only for MC Squared, because obviously there must be some kind of official business that goes on in order to justify why these girls are coming. So this was the beauty of the MC Squared, that they actually had contract with many fashion houses in the US. So that's the legitimacy of the business that allows this extra amount of girls coming that have nothing to do with the business that's going to be directed towards Jeffrey Epstein. And that kind of message is an indicator that that's exactly what Jean-Luc Brunel was doing. He was reporting to Jeffrey Epstein, I got a new one for you. This is where she's from. She's not blonde. She's a brunette. She's 16 years old. She's ready to give you your first massage. And we all know what massage means.
So when Epstein fell the first time, what was Jean-Luc Brunel's reaction? Did he distance himself from Epstein, or did he rally to Epstein's cause and get on the next flight over from Europe with Prince Andrew to be guest of honor at the Epstein's coming home from prison party?
Well, as I say, it's like almost family, the relationship between Brunel and Epstein. So at that time, Jean-Luc Brunel will obviously remind Jeffrey Epstein that he's still there for him and he's going to be doing pretty much whatever Epstein wants, So this relationship is not ending, even though Jeffrey Epstein has been indicted. It's obviously been charged with some kind of a serious charges. So Jean-Luc Brunel is going to be extremely loyal. It's going to be loyal because the friendship is already there. And it's going to be also extremely loyal to Jeffrey Epstein because there is ongoing things they need to discuss, because this is a big operation. Jean-Luc Brunel is in the middle of it. And certainly they need to talk to each other on how and what kind of story they need to tell. So Jean-Luc Brunel will attend, from the record, from the prison, we know that he attended 67 times the prison to visit personally Jeffrey Epstein. He's not his lawyer, he's not his cousin. He's just some guys that he met a few years ago that has a model agency. They have only in common one friend, which is Ghislaine Maxwell. Yet this guy is spending 67 visits. I don't know if I would go and see my cousin if I had a cousin in prison 67 times during a period of 13 months. So it's an indicator, again, that not only they were extremely close, but certainly they needed to see each other a lot in order to be able to plan for, an exit, a communication strategy, and all be on the same page as far as what the story is going to be.
Does that mean that Jean-Luc Brunel, over those 13 months Epstein was incarcerated, which was a laughable incarceration, by the way, does that mean he was the visitor that visited Epstein the most, or was there somebody that visited Epstein even more times than Brunel?
Well, Nadia Marcinkova was probably the most frequent visitors, but there's all the visitors. There's many other visitors. I've obviously focused on Jean-Luc Brunel because that's what I'm interested in. But I know Nadia Marcinkova spent a lot of time visiting him, and all other girls went to visit him. So as I say, that father figures paid off in a certain way. People cared about him. Those that were turned from victim to basically handlers or victims into recruiters for Jeffrey Epstein didn't see the wrong. They got close to the guy. There was more than just a sex abuse. There was a father young girls kind of relationship, and they care about the guys. I mean, you don't go to see someone in jail if you don't care about him, right? So if you have some business, and if you're handling business, and if you're in the know, then you're going to be knocking at that door in prison and trying to sit down with Jeffrey Epstein. Let's not forget that all day he was out. So these guys are when are they going to see him in jail? This is really at the beginning, I think. So I don't think this is 67 times during the entire duration. I don't even think that was that. I think it was a lot at the beginning, a lot of visits took place, to support him and to get orders from him, because they were taking order from Jeffrey Epstein.
So David Darnaway has asked, Fred, was Jean-Luc Brunel connected with the infamous Bronfmans in Montreal? Did he attend parties in the Hamptons with Epstein and Howard Lutnick? And were Jean-Luc Brunel's modeling scouts in Montreal, Quebec? Has the Canadian government expressed any concerns?
Not that I'm aware. I think Brunel definitely knew the Bronfman. I mean, anybody that is in the ADL, anybody that is part of the Mega Group, at some stage, I think Brunel will have met them through Jeffrey Epstein. So yeah, the party is the Hamptons. Brunel was there. He spent some time there. He was going outside a lot with Jeffrey Epstein because he was bringing the girls. So this is it. This is not just the island. This is not just the mansion. There's also a networking image to maintain, and when Epstein moves, when Jean-Luc Brunel moves, the girls move, and this is exactly what was happening. So these guys were getting invited on private ranch, on private mansions, and they were obviously bringing girls with them. That's why there was a constant need of having young French girls coming through the agencies to be able to be marketed. It was a facade as well. It's a carte de visite. It's a business card. This is what I do. This is what I can get. And yeah, as far as Canada concerned, I think I will look into different direction. There was a big name of the fashion industry in Canada that got arrested years ago about pedophilia and being part of a really big sex abuse and so on. So he was living in New York. I think the Canadian has their fair share of pedophiles, and yeah, Jean-Luc Brunel, because of the language, definitely has connection in Montreal. I've not pushed my survey in that. I know I have a lot of people from Quebec that follows me, and I've had so much work in focusing just on what's going on in France, what happened, trying to get my head around what really happened during this long period of time in the US. And then my investigation is taking me in two different other destinations. One is in South America and the other one is in Asia. So at the moment, unfortunately, I haven't spent time on the Montreal aspect of this investigation.
So Nivaldo Oliveira Leita, boss of Mega Partners, which is a Brazilian agency, wrote on Facebook, Jean-Luc Brunel is here for a casting and to take our models to New York. Our door will always be open to you. How recent was that?
Well, that's the big question, because that's what tweeted, but we believe this was done around 2013, so probably after Epstein was released, Jean-Luc Brunel was still working pretty hard, and there was still this contest going on, still a lot of recruiting. I mean, Brazil is a big place for Jean-Luc Brunel and Epstein. They're still going there, they're still spending time there, and this is why it's so important to get these flight logs, because you're not getting the dimension of how big and how frequent Jeffrey Epstein was moving. I mean, he was staying 2-3 days in a place, moving to the next place. That's interstates in the US, but we need to understand really how big, the logistic with this network was. And I think when we're going to get really the logistics for South America, we might just get a big surprise. These guys were frequent visitors and a lot of back and forth. And if he was not moving, the girls from South America will come to to New York, Miami, and obviously Little St. James. There was an ongoing flow of girls. It's just nonstop for years and years and years. So immigration, CIA, all these intelligence agencies are absolutely lying to us. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but if for them to say that they're not aware of it, it's absolutely ludicrous, you know. So that's just Nivaldo Oliveira. He's the boss of a Brazilian model and she's called Miga. Funny enough, he's got the name of Miga. It's called Miga Partners. And he's basically having a very, very long-term relationship with Jean-Luc Brunel. And that goes way, way back from the time where Jean-Luc Brunel was actually in Paris. Because all these pageants and these beauty contests didn't come from, he didn't create that when he was in New York. This was already something that he created even before starting his real official career in the modeling business, before even working with Karen Models, even before working with Paris Premiere. He was already into this beauty contest business. And that's how he actually started up his business. At a very early stage, he was going to South America, organizing some beauty contests. So I think that he built up a very large network during that time, kept connection with these guys. And I think when he was in Miami, that was just around the corner for him to explore. It was another source of procurement of young girls.
So Virginia testified that she was groomed by Maxwell and Epstein, and she was procured for abuse to Bill Richardson, Prince Andrew, and Brunel. Brunel not only procured, but he abused her. And I can sense the frustration in the chat. People just cannot believe that none of these villains have been brought to justice. They're all out there. They're all out there, aren't they?
They just basically, you see, the problem is we're living in a world where there's two kinds of justice, and they know it very well, and we better get a grasp with this, because the concept is very simple, is if you have money, you can literally walk away. You know, you just have to have the money to pay for it, and it's just the way it goes. And anytime you look into, especially into this abuse of young girls and all this pedophile ring or pedocriminal ring, you know, and sex trafficking, for some reason people walk away, and it's just a pattern that is very visible. There is a protection. These people are protected, even if they're not directly related to high authorities. Somehow the network and the product, if we call it a product, you know, because it at the end of the day, it's a trade. You know, you've been in the trading industry. People talk about commodity, and these young girls become a commodity, and some people are rigging the market, and these people are protecting the market. That's what they are protecting. And that's the way I look at it anyway. Maybe some people might look at it in a different way, but I really look at it as a market, because when you talk about billions, we're not talking about millions, but billions of dollars made out of the prostitution of underage girls around the world, and model agency being one area of recruitment, but there's so many other places where these poor kids are you know, kidnapped. And we will go a bit further down in this, maybe today or the next time, in terms of the numbers, as far as not only in France, but internationally, how much people are disappearing, how many kids are disappearing, and we still just don't know where these kids are. Even the police in France, for example, is saying that we cannot even be accurate because the numbers are absolutely staggering. And the way also they are actually accepting the information from the parents, the family, or the nearest of these kids, sometimes they end up looking for the same kids with different identities, because let's not forget, in human trafficking, obviously, you're going to have to, you know, have passports. You're going to have access to all that to make people move. So the names, you can talk about a same kid with different identities in sex trafficking and human trafficking rings. It's just mind blowing. I mean, it's sometimes you got to close the book and take 2 days off, you know, just because it's so disgusting. Yeah, that's how bad it is.
So did Brunel sue Epstein in 2015, and they start to get into legal situations?
Yeah, he did. He sued Epstein. So I've kind of wondered about why he actually really sued Epstein, and I think there's only two logical explanations. One, probably closest to the truth, is there is no denial that the association with the name Epstein is going to make you lose business. I mean, it's not hard to sell, right? It's pretty obvious that if you have an agency or whatever that you do, and you saw the Black Book, for instance, your name is associated to Jeffrey Epstein, even if you've done nothing with him, you just happen to be on that Black Book. This is just bad business, you know. So Jean-Luc Brunel, which was really one of the close circle, you know, one of what the so-called co-conspirators, then obviously his name was already burned before even he met Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, this name in Paris and this early part of the work that he was doing with Next Management, already his reputation in Paris is burned, he's completely toasted, and he's also toasted already in New York. He had a bad reputation in the industry. So now he's going to obviously lose some business because of his association with Jeffrey Epstein. That's the first explanation. But a second explanation, which I believe also might also be associated to that, is that it was a defense mechanism. It's the way to create distance, you know, to create distance in between him and Epstein, and saying, look, I'm suing the guy. You know, if I was part of it, I will not sue him, you know. But we saw Ghislaine Maxwell doing the same thing, going after the estates, saying that Jeffrey Epstein owes me, you know, he owes me, he needs to pick up my bills, you know, because I work for him, you know. So this is the agreement that we had. And I think Jean-Luc Brunel is going to go along with that plan as well, starting to say, I'm going to sue the guy. Now, this is a very interesting, I'll take this opportunity to give you a few information, which I find interesting as well, is that you find out a lot about the state of mind of Jean-Luc Brunel in actually the lawsuit against Epstein, because he's going to compile a complete documents, and he's going to bring a lot of documents within this lawsuit to demonstrate that he lost a lot of business. So what you're going to find in these documents, and I went through some of them, you find a lot of letters from many model agencies around the world writing to Jean-Luc Brunel, saying that basically, look, you know, we have nothing, it's not personal, but the families, they don't want to send their kids to you because your name is all over the press associated with Jeffrey Epstein. So we got to wait for the things to cool down before we be able to sign contract or send you girls, you know, your way in Miami. And he has a lot of like emails and letters from agencies writing him this kind of letters, and they're also telling him to sort his life out. They're telling him, you got to sort your life out, mate. Can't run a business like that. You know, this is not good for business. And then other letters will involve a few letters from Jeff Fuller. Jeff Fuller was the executive, one of the executive of the MC Squared office in New York. Also spent a lot of time in Miami as well. And Jeff Fuller is an interesting character. We'll talk about him at some stage as well. But he's writing a lot of letters to Jean-Luc Brunel and telling him, look, you know, this is really going down the drain. This is really bad. And we're going down. We are not making any money. We are losing all the major contracts. We need to do something. And that's going to be a very interesting period, because this is the period where the preparation for MC Squared to be dismantled and being the asset being basically sold out to other outfit or the modeling agency outfit. And then more importantly, being able to express Jean-Luc Brunel kind of a depression, because he went through a very big depression when he was in Miami during that time. I mean, the guy's, all he knows is modeling. All he knows is scouting. That's what he loves. That's what he do. That's how he makes his money. And that is taken away because he's associated with Epstein. So I'm not going to feel sorry for the guys. Let's be clear. But obviously, as a business person, you know, your revenue, your source of revenue has been taken away from you. You're going down basically, and you will never be able to work in this business. And which means that you're going to have to rely on other people to do the business for you. And we're going to talk about that as well.
So Brad Edwards represents some of the victims. On the legal battlefield, what was Brunel's relationship with Brad Edwards like?
How they hated each other, Sean. I mean, I think it was, you know, I'll probably invite Brad and ask him himself, but I think he hated Jean-Luc Brunel as well, you know, but he was so dedicated, you know, you got to give him that, you know. I think he's been awarded recently for the work that he's done. But Yeah, I think, look, I mean, you know, he knew exactly what was going on. You know, it wasn't, when you hear the story from the victims, you know, and you get 14 years old kids sitting in your office, and if you take the time to listen to the depositions, you know, it's pretty bad. It's really bad. I've taken the time to go through a lot of videos that are available if you know where to look for them. And yeah, I can understand why Bradley would not like Jean-Luc Brunel, because he knew exactly what this guy was up to. And Jean-Luc Brunel will be very cocky. You know, he's a Frenchman. I'm not saying all Frenchmen are cocky, but you know, he's got money. He thinks that he's protected. Don't forget, there's that arrogance that Jeffrey Epstein, that impression that Jeffrey Epstein and his inner circle is untouchable. And when you, as I say, you know, beneath the wing of the dragon, it's very hot, it's very warm, you know, and you feel comfortable. All upon you get cocky. So there's nothing they can do to me. And I think that's how Jean-Luc Brunel's attitude was. Like, I'm protected. You can do and you can say whatever you want. Nothing's going to happen to me. So I think that's the reason why eventually, when not only just Bradley Edwards, but other law firm wanted to talk to Jean-Luc Brunel because the victims were starting to come forward. And Bradley, I think at the time was out of Fort Lauderdale, if I'm not mistaken. But he wanted to definitely get Jean-Luc and to get a, you know, under oath testimony. And this happening around 2016, you know, and Brunel will come to one of them. He'll say, "I'll come, but I don't want to see Bradley." That's how bad he was. I don't want to see Bradley in the office. I will talk to the other lawyers, give them a little story, a little spiel, but at the end of the day, the bottom line was that he needed to sit down with the prosecution in New York and starting to really basically give his full testimonies and tell everything that he knew about Jeffrey Epstein and this sex crime, this sex ring, you know. So he promised he will do it. He said the next day, so I'll make the necessary. I will remain in the United States and I will go and sit down with the prosecution to explain everything that I know. That was his last word to the lawyers in Miami. And then the next day he was on the flight going back to Paris, because he knew that at that time he was in big trouble and that he needed to hide, and he needed the safety of the French jurisdiction, making sure that there's not going to be any extradition. So he's been avoiding the legal system, in the American legal system, every single time. And I don't understand why they didn't catch him. I mean, they could have literally catch him after the allegations that were made, just based on the accusation that was made by the victims, all the affidavits that was available. That's just absolutely enough ingredient, enough element to arrest the guy, and, you know, starting to put him in an interrogation room and asking him what the hell is going on here, you know. But this never happened, and you must wonder why it never happened. And I believe the only reason why it never happened is because he was protected. He was, you know, one of the henchmen of Jeffrey Epstein, and he was protected. There's no doubt about it.
So one of the judges on Maxwell's cases recently said there was the possibility that Maxwell was a victim of Epstein. People like Wexner, that old throat slitter, claiming he was a victim of Epstein. Epstein picked his pocket. Time and time again, we've seen the co-conspirators play the victim card. Did Brunel do that?
Well, yeah, he's exactly in the state of mind. But these guys operate with the same MO. You know, it's exactly the same way. They're all the same. When they get caught, the first thing they do is they are the victims. There's a common patterns in this kind of guys, you know. And Ghislaine Maxwell, you know, Epstein, at the end of the day, he got caught. He's gonna, you know, trying to play around, play the big guy, because he was a big guy. Let's not forget that. But these are not, Jean-Luc Brunel is not as big, you know, so he's going to get cocky, but clearly he's going to play the victim as well. In France, it was the same, you know. He was like, oh, you know, I'm an old man, you know, I'm 74 years old. They're coming after me with all these allegations. They are basically, they're just basically dirtying my name. They're accusing me of things that I've never done. We know that the only time that he was asked about his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and all the allegation and the accusation that was against him, he never recognized absolutely anything. He always denied it, say absolutely nothing to do with that. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a victim of the press. It's kind of a public court, and they're judging me before bringing any evidence to it. So he's always denied it. He's always been the victim, and he's psychologically, according to his lawyer, Corinne Dreyfus-Smith, he's psychologically weak, and you know, he's obviously very depressed, you know, about what's going on. So I don't take this seriously at all. It's meaningless, and I think Ghislaine Maxwell, she can play that card, you know, but nobody gonna buy that. I mean, for me, as far as I'm concerned, she's definitely one of the brain of the outfit, and she's exactly where she's supposed to be.
What was Brunel's reaction to Epstein being suicided?
Well, am I the next? I think anybody that was in the inner circle of Jeffrey Epstein was worried that something was going down. And this actually happened way before Jeffrey Epstein actually was arrested in New Jersey. This was going on since the Zorro Ranch. And if you start to really research, I've actually done some video on the Zorro Ranch, and I'm doing a kind of a little mini series on the Zorro Ranch, because you will be very, very, very interesting in knowing where the story of the Zorro Ranch takes you. You know, it's actually a big story, and it's really barely been touched upon. It's go really, really deep, and it involves people that I would have never guessed of. So that I will be speaking with you about that later on. But just to go back to the overall understanding of the climate at the Zorro Ranch, Epstein was already very paranoid. He has developed a paranoia, and was on many occasions stated to the people that was close to him that he thought that the Mossad was coming after him. So we're talking at a period, I mean, he bought the ranch in 1993, you know, so we're talking about a period around years 2004, 2005. And just before his arrest, and then even after his arrest, he was always paranoid about being whacked by the Mossad. And he said it to his people. You know, it's available. The information is available. And then the second thing that I can tell you, because this needs to be corroborated, you know, we need to hear this story by other people as well. And I've heard this story from someone else, and no one else than the butler of Jeffrey Epstein in Paris, Gabriel, the Franco-Brazilian guy. He actually said it. He said that and towards the end, before his arrest, he actually hired a bodyguard, and he actually changed his car to get a bulletproof car. And that's how paranoid he was about being whacked. So he knew that people were coming after him. I don't know if he knew it, whether it was the Mossad or other agencies, but he knew that his days were counted. So this is an interesting, because by understanding the psychological state, you know, state of mind before the arrest, and when you listen to the story after the arrest, when obviously there's a first attempt of suicide, and then the second one, which will be successful, whether he's been killed or not, that's for, you know, the justice to decide, not being in conspiracy, you know. But well, what I know is that definitely he knew that someone was coming after him, and I think that gives us a little clue here.
So the United States Virgin Islands has been poking around into the finances. What is the relationship with Highbridge Capital, which is run by Dubin?
Well, it's, you know, it's just not the Highbridge Capital. It's an entire group of companies that are basically being used as investment vehicle, money laundering vehicle. I mean, you name it. These are all financial vehicle. I mean, you work in the financial world, you know how the thing works. You know, it's really not complex. You know, a couple of shell company, a trust and a foundation, and that's it. That's pretty much all you need. You're going to open a company. When the hit comes up, you close the company, open another one, and that's exactly what these guys were doing. They had vehicles, what I call purpose vehicle. This purpose vehicle is simply basically to pay a certain number of you know, partners, business partners, people that need to be paid, or simply to vehicle money from one place to another, and using your legal team to set up fake contract or whatever it is to justify the provenance of the fund. So that's what basically this company was. I think we can say that Highbridge Capital, which was an investment fund, which was caught up, the name came up with the HSBC inquiry. So we know this definitely a dodgy company, and that's what the USVI, the United States Virgin Islands authorities, wants to find out. But as I say, again, I'm going to bring a word of caution as far as the excitement behind all the distribution of this subpoena we saw 2 weeks ago. But this is a process that has been going on since, I think, March 2020. So there's a lot of subpoenas that have been already provided and, you know, given to many people, whether it's on federal level, but also from the USVI. We've got to be very cautious, you know, because when you serve a subpoena, you need to understand that the other side, the recipient of that subpoena, can challenge that subpoena. And for technicality, for many reasons, that subpoena can be quashed very quickly, you know. And when you're dealing with billionaires, they have the best lawyers. And if there is any technicality, that subpoena will be squashed. So it's very interesting to see, you know, how these guys are going to respond to it. We are told they've been given 30 days. Let's see what's going to happen. But in the midst of that, you saw that, actually, we've never saw it, but we understand that MC Squared has been served with a subpoena that includes MC Squared and Jean-Luc Brunel. So again, you know, when you serve a subpoena, if you're going to call it a subpoena, it has to have jurisdiction in order to be served. And I'm sure lawyers could talk about that much better than I can. But if it's going to go beyond a certain borders, then it's going to be a rogatory letter. And then at that time, what you're asking is legal assistance from other governments, you know, to help you to basically interrogate and provide the circumstances under which you can interrogate someone that is involved in criminal activities. Not even if he's not a criminal, but he might have information relating to the crime. So that's what it's all about at the moment. So again, cautious about, it's not because you serve a subpoena that you're going to get the information. We need to wait, see how these people are going to respond. And then when you get the answer, then at that moment in time, you know where people stand. I'm not saying not everyone's going to be positive about it, but I'm sure some of them will be challenged. You can expect that.
So to show how incestuous this all is then, what's the story of Eva Anderson?
Well, Eva Anderson, she's an interesting character. Obviously, we all know she ended up to be Dubin's wife, you know, but she's a well-educated person. She's I believe was a doctor, and she's a former Swedish model. And 20 years before Dubins got with her in the 1980s, she was actually dating Jeffrey Epstein. And Anderson will eventually end up being with Dubins. But the relationship between Eva and Dubins and Jeffrey Epstein has been going on for a long, long time. These are very close friends, and they've kept a very good relationship. And those that have investigated Dubins should really talk about it. I didn't go deep into that because it's literally Dubins. If you look into the Dubins, it's like a mini Epstein affair. So that's how big it is. This is a big family, extremely rich, powerful guys. I think Forbes estimated it last year in New York that is worth $2 billion. So guys like Dubin's worth $2 billion. That's what basically legally he's been declaring as. So, you know, he's worth probably 20 or $30 billion. You know, he's a big guy. And I think the investigation, hopefully, the FBI said that they're probably gonna make some arrests at some stage, and I hope Dubins is amongst them because he has a lot of questions to answer for sure.
So Carine Models was searched by the cops, and the manager, Ruth Malka, said he never knew anything about Brunel's attitude towards young women. Do you think he's full of it?
See, Brunel he really had two faces, you know, and more I'm learning about him, more I'm speaking to people that I knew him personally. Some of them spoke, as I say, 30 years with him. So everybody will always have a good word for Jean-Luc Brunel. So he is a very likable person, was a bit moody because probably he was taking a little bit too much cocaine, you know, he was shoveling it a little bit too much, but surely this dude is liked because he's I think people can relate to him, and he can be very personable. You know, he can be generous at the time, friendly, kind. He's soft-spoken, he's sweet, but he's got these his bad moment. He's got a temper a little bit, but more importantly, there's a side of him that nobody knows. And as I said last time, only these victims are the best person to talk about Brunel, because if you ask people that I work with him, there's only people that he was in business with, like really in business with, that can say, yeah, he's not the Brunel that everybody knows. So that's important to understand. Maritza Vasquez in Miami can tell good stories about Jean-Luc Brunel because she knows the other side of Brunel. She warned him many times, stop doing what you do. That Epstein guy is going to get you in trouble. She knew what he was doing with this young girl in Brazil. She knows the whole story about him. And they're trying to shut her up, because obviously she knows way too much. I'm actually surprised she's never been targeted, even worse, yeah, that's basically what, anyway, Ruth Malka, which was really managing the Karen's model agency when Jean-Luc left. And she's very close to Jean-Luc Brunel. They know each other very well. And there's a trust as well there. So loyalty is definitely in place, and you're not going to get any information from her. You're not going to get her to say bad thing about Jean-Luc Brunel. All the people will say in France is, well, he was not an angel for sure. But that's as much as you're going to get,
So former model Courtney, she told the media that Brunel tried to push me on his bed. I resisted. He persisted. He then tried violently to undo my shirt. I managed to escape from the room. What's her story?
Well, her story is quite straightforward as well. She's ended up like many models at the time. We're talking about even before the 90s. We're talking about a period around, I think it was 1988, and she's only 19 years old. So she's not a minor as such, but she's definitely obviously a young girl with very little experience. She comes to France under the wing of Jean-Luc Brunel, and the same MO that happened with so many victims, whether it's Zoe Brooke, whether it's Ticia Hussman, it's the same MO. It will bring them to the apartments. There's going to be friends, there's going to be parties, going to take them to nightclubs, going to go to the bain douche, there's going to be drugs, there's going to be a lot of drinks, and the girls eventually will, you're going to make them understand that they're going to have to do favors to promote their career, So not only they're going to have to sleep with Jean-Luc Brunel, but they're going to have to also please his little close circle of friends, the Jean-Yves Le Fur and Varsano and all these, dirty guys, and sleazy as hell, So that's the story of Courtney Sorensen. She's basically trapped under the pretext that Jean-Luc Brunel is going to show her a art collection in his very sumptuous apartment. From what I've heard, he doesn't have it any longer, and he sold it a long time ago, this apartment. But the Avenue Hoche apartments of Jean-Luc Brunel was absolutely a piece of art. He was very pompous and very sumptuous, and a bit extravagant like himself, so it was quite flashy from what I understand. And yeah, he had a lot of square meters. He had a lot of art, and was using this as a pretext to tell the girls, hey, come to that room. I'm going to show you some beautiful piece of art, some French art or whatever. And then the girls will be pushed, on the bed, and then the abuse will start, and they will eventually have to go along with it. And if they were not going along with it, it all depends if they have used drug, because they was known in Paris to drug, the drinks of the girls. So when they were coming back to the apartments, the girls very quickly, will not feel great. Some of them will even not remember what was going on unless they wake up the next morning and feeling abused, and I think any woman will tell you that if they've been raped, they know they've been raped. This is not something you can make up. This is not something your body can forget. So she's another victim. She's 19 years old, and Epstein will actually be violent with her. That's what I've gathered from her testimony. She really was violently assaulted by Jeffrey Epstein, and he will rip her shirt, and she will eventually manage to escape. I mean, can you imagine a young 19 years old tell you, I had to escape from this guy? you know. So that's not just like someone's been a bit insistent with talking about physical abuse where you feel that you need to escape because your life, your body, your integrity as a woman is in danger. And this guy is still walking amongst us. This is an outrage, obviously. So that's what happened to her. And then there was casting, there was photo shoots. She was participating in that. But unfortunately, when you say no to Brunel, then the punishment comes very quickly. And you're not going to get any work. Simple as that. He's going to push you out. First of all, you're not going to stay at Avenue Hoche in the sumptuous apartment. You're going to end up in a, you know, dodgy apartment in Pigalle in center Paris where prostitutes are and so on. And eventually he'll make you understand that you got to go, you know. If you're not going to go along with the plan, most of the girls will eventually find a new agencies, or for many of them, they will quit their career. They will stop being a model. They'll be disgusting by all of it and then go home.
So when was Brunel at the Hotel Bristol and what happened there?
Well, the Hotel Bristol was the, actually Jeffrey Epstein was at the Hotel Bristol. When this, before Epstein bought the property in Paris, you know, the number 22 Avenue Hoche, before doing this, before actually buying legally, he started by going to the Hotel Bristol and then eventually after rented the property at the 22nd Avenue Foch from two companies, from a big insurance company. I'm not going to give name because it's irrelevant. There's no need to put their name in that story. But what really matters to understand, it was step by step that Epstein acquired the property in Paris. And he had a lot of habit staying at the Hotel Bristol. Just for you to know, the Hotel Bristol is that where a lot of celebrities, a lot of VIPs coming, especially in the United States, but from around the world, when they come to Paris, there is few addresses that you must be going to if you are, you know, a well-known person. And Hotel Bristol is one of them. The other one is the George V Hotel of the Champs-Élysées. So this is basically a hotel where you will get masseuses and girls coming. So when you refer to the Black Book of Epstein, this is where you get the names of all these girls coming to give him massage. We don't know what it means. These are escorts, basically, giving him massage and eventually turning out into a sexual relation. But this is where he was spending time. And we know that at the time, he actually got very close to a French girl. She was about 26 years old at the time. Her name is in the Black Book. That's all I'm going to say to you. I don't think I want to go further than that. There's no point really to put a name and to put her through whatever she had to go through, because we don't get the full story from her. She doesn't really want to talk, but we know she is. We have the name and we know she is in the Black Book. And she actually, the way we found out that she got very close with Jeffrey Epstein is that for a period of 3 months, she will be actually part of the logs. So if you look at the logs, you can understand, you can see around that time that she was traveling all the time with Jeffrey Epstein. So Jeffrey could get close with girls. Now, what this girl was doing is the question. Was she a victim? Was she just a masseuse that eventually become a victim and eventually someone that helped him recruiting young girls in France? We're looking into that. That's all I'm prepared to say to that.
So since his death then, what's happened with these French properties?
Well, these French properties is, Jeffrey Epstein is a bully, you know, that's something people need to understand. He will go to any extent to get, you know, to get his way, to get things his way. So when he started to run this property at the 22nd of the Avenue Foch, he first rented it out and eventually made a proposal to the insurance company that owns it. And they accepted his proposal. So he obviously gave a good price for it because this is a prime address in Paris. And he's gonna basically work as you know, developing this the idea of starting to own the building literally. So he's gonna act as someone that's gonna get more square meters in the building. So he's gonna have apartment at the 2nd floor and then the 5th floor, and then he's gonna make also a a tentative of securing the first floor of the building, where there was a Saudi family that was actually renting out the place. And the Saudi family liked the place so much, they eventually made an offer to the owner of the first floor. It's quite large apartments. And they were just basically wanted to buy the apartment. And then Epstein is going to go and use the legal system, going to get his lawyer on the case, and trying to stop the sale to occur, to get the first floor as well. So we can clearly see that I think there was a big plan, a big idea in Epstein's mind as far as securing this place and make the 22nd of Avenue Foch his place, which he could control who's coming in, who's coming out, get some kind of being in the center of Paris, but still having that privacy that he enjoyed on Little Saint-James or other properties. He's a very private person. He's a very lonely person as well. Gabriel, the butler, will talk a lot about Epstein, about the way he is, what kind of person he is. And one of the things that really amazed me, with all the money in the world that he has, with all the celebrities and these very powerful people that he knows, he's still a very lonely person, spend a lot of time on his own in front of his computer. He's a very secretive person as well. He will not mix conversation with people that don't need to know. So there's people that will have one part of the story, other people will have the other part of the story. Some people will have no story at all. He is very, very good at compartmentalizing the information as well. Something, by the way, that he will teach to Jean-Luc Brunel. Been having completely two different life, being able to have a front of the house, a facade, and being able to give information or release information according to who needs to know, almost like an intelligence officer. You don't need to know, then I don't need to tell you the story. And that was a little bit Epstein, never talk about what he had in his hand, what he could do, or, unless you needed to know. That was Epstein. So yeah. And then finally, what I can tell you about these properties certainly for me, and from what I really can put together, was that eventually in time, Jeffrey Epstein, I think he knew he was already warned by probably Secret Service, by the Mossad, that not only the FBI, but probably other agencies were on his case. And I think the prosecution was coming. So I don't think he came as a surprise that he was arrested. He just didn't know when he was coming. And I think he was making plan. And what we understand is Jeffrey Epstein had a plan to retire in Paris. So Paris was the location where he will, grow old. I mean, he's over 60 years old kind of guy, 66, I think, when he got arrested. So, he wants to get a retirement area where obviously very easily probably he'll be able to get a passport or something that's going to protect him from extradition. And probably the only place that he will attend will be the Little St. James. He will not come back onto the mainland United States. So that was the plan.
Who's Gabriel, and why in recent years did he invest in a bodyguard and an armored vehicle?
Well, Gabriel is just the butler. He's really a confidant as well of Jeffrey Epstein. As I said to you earlier, he had a real proximity with his staff. He knew how to build that relationship. So Gabriel and his wife, they're both Franco-Brazilian, sorry, and they're taking care of the property. But more importantly, also, they have introduced to Epstein a lifestyle, a way of doing things. They are very well trained. These are people that have worked with celebrities in France before, so they are trained of the art de vivre. They are trained on how to take care of VIPs. They work with big families, the former boss of the L'Oreal company, but also with actresses and personalities like François Dalle, people that are very well known in France, or people that have lived with VIPs all their life. So they're very good at that. They know what these people like, what kind of food to cook them, how to serve it, how to serve their guests. All that is a school. And you only learn it by not only going to school, but actually by serving VIPs, billionaires, famous people. So they're extremely well trained. And Jeffrey Epstein is going to love them so much that he's going to actually take them with him everywhere. And their job will be to train the staff in Manhattan, but also in Palm Beach and on Little St. James. So these guys will basically train any intendant, any butler, anybody that got close to Jeffrey Epstein, provide him so-called French service. And Jeffrey Epstein absolutely adored that. And Gabriel was basically the person entrusted to do that. Number one, because he doesn't talk. He's a very loyal person. Let's not forget that still today, as we are talking, he's under the employment of the Trust 1953. The Trust 1953 is responsible, is registers in the Virgin Islands, and is responsible to pay the employees of Epstein, and also any maintenance, anything that the residents of Epstein needed will be paid via the Trust 1953. Why 1953? Simply because it is the day, the year of birth of Jeffrey Epstein.
Ah. So Gabrielle kind of described a compartmentalized setup then, where the girls would be eaten in a kitchen, kept separate from guests.
Yeah.
But we've got cops have said that anyone who visited Epstein's properties, from the pornographic art and the girls around, they all knew what was going on. So with Gabrielle here saying it was compartmentalized versus the police saying everybody knew what was going on, what was the actual fact?
Well, the fact is that, as I say, Epstein is a very secretive person and very compartmentalized, in his way of dealing with things. So there's no way that he wanted to have literally Prince Andrew of Steve Bannon or Gates, Melinda Gates and Bill Gates coming to the house and saying, some half naked 13 years old. This is not, people that say that they don't really understand. They haven't read enough about Jeffrey Epstein. This is not the kind of guy. What he does, he was extremely private. He's a very private person. And what he does, which is nefarious, which is obviously criminal, this is not something that is going to open to people that is not, entrusted with. What he does with the girls, that's not going to be mixed with what the service he might be providing for people willing to enjoy themselves with these young girls. These are two different things. He's got his private life, he's got what he likes to do, and this is not something that he's going to share directly, privately with someone else. Now, if someone like Prince Andrew, for example, or other top VIP like Bill Clinton or Bill Richardson wants to enjoy the girls, then he will offer the girl to them. That's how it goes. And I think Virginia will probably say the same. This is what's happening. She was sent somewhere to perform a duty, you see. So this is proper sex trafficking, where the girl is basically providing a service for a client, Now, but when it happens under his roof, he manages it very well. And that's what Gabrielle will tell us. The girls will stay in the kitchen, and this is it. They will not even know who is upstairs in the next floor up. They will not even know who the guests are. He didn't want these guys to see the girls. But if these guys will see girls, he will make sure that he shows girls that are not like 14 years old. He will show like maybe 17, 18, 19, maybe 20 years old, to make it obviously acceptable, to be seen around. So he knew what he was doing, and Gabriel was privy of that. And I'm really feel sorry that he's not. I understand he has to make a living, but I cannot understand that he allows that. He knows what was going on. There's no doubt about it. He knows very well. He has a lawyer actually that's taking care of him, and she's basically refusing him to talk. Basically, she told him, that's it. That's his where things gonna stop, and this is as much as you can say. Now, the funny part of it is Gabrielle's lawyer is actually the person that in Paris was taking care of Jeffrey Epstein's business. So she's also do like exactly what Epstein's done in the United States, is providing legal support for anybody that is in his inner circle. They're all on the tap. Epstein pays for the bills. You get caught, you got a problem, anything comes your way, Epstein's going to provide straight away the lawyer, that defense, making sure that nobody talks. And it happens in France exactly the same way.
So you've even documented what Epstein got up to when he wasn't at his properties in France. He liked to go swimming, to the Ritz, to the Palace, and the art shops.
Yeah, very, very arty. You can find a lot of piece of art, and one in Manhattan, he has this big tiger, and taxidermy or whatever it was, but this was all coming from Paris, so he was a big art collector. Those that have, after his death, went onto the island, they also saw some nice piece of art. A lot of it was coming from different journey, that he took, whether it was in Africa, North Africa, or France, or whatever he was going. He was an art collector, and he had a lot of art, in his house in Paris as well. Yeah.
So the next section is quite a long one. This might be a good point to tell the viewers that if they want to have a question for Fred, if you want to put that in the live chat right now, and maybe when we pick up on the next live stream, we could go over to the next section, because we've gone over an hour and a half already. Is anybody in the live chat? Do you have questions, please, for Fred? I will just scroll back a little bit and see what other people have asked. Gang of Four, what is Fred's knowledge base on this matter? I think he's asking about your credentials.
My credential?
Yeah.
Well, it's, the credential is like anybody that starts to look into the matter and starting to investigate. And as I say, you need to corroborate a certain number of informations, and you're going to have to collect this information from various sources. And when you're going to go to the modeling world in France, there is an omerta. Omerta is a word that means basically the law of silence. This is the word that was used by the mafia in Sicily. So nobody talk. So you're going to have to use your personal connections. You're going to have to use a certain number of ways to get into sources that's going to be willing to give you a little bit of information. And you're going to have to start to put the dots together. You're going to have to set up a timeline. It's a work of investigation. So what is my knowledge of that is like, I'm a concerned citizen, mate. On what I want to know, how come under my soil, under the soil of my country, people have been abused. People, young girls of 14, 15, 16 years old were abused for years, and nothing has happened. So I'm not only after Jean-Luc Brunel, I'm after those that have anyway allowed it to happen. So that's my credential. My credential is that any credential of any citizen of anywhere, any place in the world you find yourself, if you're not worried about happening to your children, and you stop caring just about yourself, but caring about the others, and making sure that our governments and your governments is accountable for what it does, that's called being a citizen, mate. That's my credential.
Well said. Did Jean-Luc Brunel and Peter Nygard ever meet?
Sorry, say it again, I didn't hear you.
Okay, so we got the other billionaire, Peter Nygard, who was, the allegations have come out about him recently. Was he clicked up with Jean-Luc Brunel?
Well, he's a Canadian guy. He's a big fashion designer. I think he provides a lot of fashion. He's in the clothing industry and the garment industry, and he's a lot of his I think articles and a lot of his material is sold in the big stores in New York. So anyway, no, I don't know. As I said to you, you asked me the question earlier. As far as the link in between Brunel and Nygard, I can't say it because I didn't go down that road at the moment. I have to privilege a certain destinations. I will go to Montreal. I will look into Montreal, what I meant. And but right now, as I say, I'm mainly in Asia and other places in North Africa as well. So I'm looking into where Brunel went, what was he doing, who was he with there, and was he in Canada, and who was there, what was the connections. I don't have that answer, so I'm not going to make it up. I just don't know.
Okay, a few people are asking me to answer what is the status of Wilfred Wong. So Wilfred Wong is a podcast guest that we've had on twice, who has talked about SRA. And Wilfred Wong was just recently arrested with 5 other people. They've been charged, I believe, with trying to kidnap a child, and Wilfred Wong was in possession of a knife, and they were in a car with false license plates. So his supporters have sent me information. The detractors are saying, was Wilfred just full of it and he's doing the things he's accusing others of? But his supporters have rallied to his cause, and they have sent me information stating that one of the 5 people that Wilfred was arrested with was the mother of the child, and that they were on a rescue mission. They were concerned about the child's welfare, that she was being abused, and they tried to extract the child. So legally, we do not want vigilantism. We are not encouraging people to break the law and snatch children. On this channel, it is educational, and we urge people to show restraint to a degree in these situations and take their complaints through the relevant legal bodies and have these situations addressed through the legal system, which can be torturous and can take time and can be very frustrating for people. We understand the corruption and the shenanigans that go on, but we urge people not to end up with very serious charges, which is what Wilfred Wong is facing right now, and he could well be doing some serious prison time, because anything involving children, when you get charged with anything involving children, weapons, kidnapping, all these things are going to aggravate your sentence when it comes to a trial. So my present status is that we are awaiting Wilfred Wong's version of events. If this does go to trial and he does testify on his behalf, or his lawyers testify on his behalf, we're just anxiously waiting to hear the other version, because the media reports one version, and there's always not just two sides to a story. There's usually many sides to a story. So we're waiting to see what the outcome is if it goes to trial, what he says. And again, we do not want people copying that kind of behavior, going out, snatching kids with knives in cars and breaking the law. We absolutely do not want anyone on this channel breaking the law, and we're not trying to inspire anyone to do anything like that. This is all for educational purposes, what we're saying here today. And we believe that by shining light on corruption and child abuse, it will make it so that these predators have nowhere to hide, and there will be less of it, and hopefully things will be improved around the world. So next question for you, Fred, is has Brunel been indicted in France? There's
no indictment against Jean-Luc Brunel. All I can say to you with regards to that, because obviously there's, I think Corinne Dreyfus-Smith has been very clear about that. She reminded everyone that absolutely no charge has been laid against a client. So Jean-Luc Brunel is a free man, and that's absolutely unbelievable, but he is still a free man today in France, and he's not hiding from the French authorities or from the investigation, from the prosecution. He's just absolutely a free man. So now, something which I've discussed with people that speaks with Brunel, that I was in contact with him recently. They all told me the same thing, that he's not hiding. He's not hiding, but he's already. One person that I talked to was actually interrogated by the OCRVP, by the police, and the investigators investigating in this the French segment of the Epstein affair, where obviously the name of Jean-Luc Brunel came out quite oftenly. So he had a close circle, the people that knew him well, people that have worked with him. So obviously when they did the raid on Karen Model's office and Epstein's house, but also they went to interrogate a certain number of people. And some of them told me that during the interrogations that they went through the police, which was very gentle, it was basically just doing their job, asking, what do they know? Have they seen anything? Normal standard questions that they will ask. And the way the police was talking to them was that they felt that was, I'm basically just transmitting their feelings, but their feeling was that Jean-Luc Brunel had already been interrogated by the police very quickly after the launch of this investigation from the Parquet de Paris, which is the prosecutor's office in Paris. So there is definitely seems that they've been speaking with Jean-Luc Brunel, which will make a lot of sense. It wouldn't make any sense for them not to talk to him. When he's in France, they have access to him. Now, the question is whether they talk to him or not is, as I say, it's based on people that have been officially interrogated by the police. And I know they've been interrogated by the police because I have the documents of their convocation to the police. So I know they're not lying to me. But what they're telling me is that they feel that from the way the police is talking is that they've already talked to Jean-Luc Brunel. So that's make it worse, because that's mean that they talked to the guy and nothing has happened for a year, which is beyond belief.
How long have you been investigating Brunel, and do you have any faith in Interpol? Are two questions that have just come in.
I've been investigating Brunel since late 2019. I've been following the Epstein case for much longer, but Brunel, as far as really going into investigation mode, you know, whereby you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to really start to look into it, then obviously you need to, yeah, that would be end of 2019. And then as far as do I have any faith in Interpol? Again, you know, you got to be very cautious the way you answer these kind of questions, because there is good people out there that are really trying to make a difference, you know, and I definitely don't want to, diminish their effort and everything they do to keep us safe, to keep all as nations safe, you know, and trying to exchange information amongst countries. It's a beautiful idea, Interpol, you know, as Europol is, you know, it's a beautiful idea, and there are great people out there. So again, I'm not going after these guys, but unfortunately, we all have a boss. And then there are certain names, certain people, certain group of people that seems to be protected and beyond, incriminations. And it seems to always get away with it. Epstein was one of them. And when eventually they got him, they got rid of him. So yeah, something is going on. There's a construct, there's the intelligence involved in this. What role do they play? How do they act upon? Do we believe in them or not? Probably it's irrelevant. We don't have to believe these guys. What we need to believe is what we are told by the victims. That's what we need to believe, because they are the first witness in every single crime that has been committed against them. So what Europol told me, or Interpol, is relevant, but a bit further down the line. I would rather trust TC Usman or trust, Virginia Giuffre than some goon over there, in Interpol telling me a story. Can say the truth, he can lie. I would never know.
Have you found any evidence that Jean-Luc Brunel knew Robert Maxwell?
Robert Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel, that's a question that I've asked. I've actually haven't found any physical proof in documents that these two were ever met. So that's an information that I was not able to find in written. As far as in other discussions, it's no, nobody has ever told me, yeah, Robert Maxwell and Jean-Luc Brunel were friends. I don't think this was the case, but he was very friend with Ghislaine Maxwell. Nothing stopped him to have come to London and maybe meet Robert Maxwell, but I don't think there was a direct link there. And if there is, then I'd love to know about it, but I've never found anything.
Is your safety at risk, and how do you remain mentally balanced researching such dark matter?
It is, you see, over the past 10 days, I've noticed that it's so easy to get dragged into a lot of details. And I've seen that just what people like, you've seen, I spend a lot of time on Twitter trying to talk and exchange information. And Twitter is a very nasty place. You get great people, and lots of the people have been so supportive, but sometimes, you get hit, and people are, it's we all know not on the same page, and people sometimes feel like this is a competition of information, where it's not. What matters is that we all bring things in the middle of the table and trying to pick up what makes sense to us with regards to our research and our information. And in the process, you will make sometimes mistakes, because we are not trained professional. We are not FBI, we're not CIA. We have not spent 15 years at the farms learning on how to investigate a global sex trafficking ring. We just don't have that expertise. We're not experts as such. So what we can do is with a bit of common sense and a bit of intelligence, trying to pick up a certain number of information, put them together and see if they make sense, and we share it with other people that are like-minded. And what really helped me to keep going with this is the fact that there are great people out there like myself that are not cocky, that are not trying to be who they're not. They just tell you, we just want to know. We have questions and we want answers, and these answers are for us, but also for the victims. And we want to know what really is going on. And as for me personally, I want to get my government, to be accountable for what they've done, what they're not doing. why these people are not taken to justice, why we are not getting the truth, you know. And this seems to be occurring around the world the same way in the United States or in the UK. There seems that there's an apparatus that is basically suppressing the information or the truth. And nobody's going to come and help us. We got to help ourselves, you know. So as I say, most of people are absolutely adorable and really nice. And I met some great people online, offline. It's really a great experience for me. I've never done that before. I don't come from that line of business, but I've met some great people, and I had the opportunity to talk to great people that I know even more than I do, some people that know less than I do, but it doesn't matter how much do you know. What matters is how much work you dedicate of your life to investigate, look into it, and trying to make a difference, because we can all watch television, and in 10 years, we will have the same discussions with absolutely no answers, and nothing will have changed. And I think that I don't want to live in that world. I'd like to see things changing. I'd like to stop. I like the lie to stop, because we've been lied to. This is the commodity of the 21st century. People just lie, lie, and lie. And our governments, you know, are pretty much right there into it. So, you know, we need to ask for accountability. And more importantly, we need to protect our children, because if we want to offer them a future, well, we're going to have to make sure that the people that are in charge of the law, of the justice, you know, making sure they do their job. And if they don't, we need to remind them to do it, because there is no future for our kids if there is no law, if there is no faith in our institution, if there is no faith in the justice system. And right now, I've got very little of it.
So we've got about 400 videos on the Epstein case on this channel. That link is in the description box below the video. As we have expanded into the Epstein story and talked about some huge names, this channel has come under more and more attacks, to the point where it's just absolutely insane. And these are sophisticated, well-financed, agent provocateur type stuff, just completely out to assassinate the good work that we're doing. Now, as you come over onto the channel here, Fred, and got your message out from the French-speaking world into the English-speaking world, are you coming under such attacks yourself?
Yes, there's a couple of trolls, you know, but that's part of the social media. It doesn't matter which platform you're gonna go into it. You know, some people are gonna try to, you know, to come after you and, you know, just be negative about anything you do, rather than to be constructive. So yes, I've experimented that a few times, and I don't really pay attention, to be honest with you, because as I know that it's better to do something than to do nothing, you know. So it's like, those that have the time to criticize your work, I would love them to put this particular energy and put it towards actually trying to help us finding the truth. So you can criticize me as much as I can. I'm going to sleep well at night, you know. And if you come for me out there, I wish you good luck.
That's it. You just have to absolutely ignore them. Otherwise, it empowers them. The slightest little response, and it empowers them. And they're very sneaky as well. They pretend to be loyal followers and all this shit. It's, yeah. So let me just see what are the last of the questions here. Let's see if we've got anything else. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. Has anyone got anything else in the live stream? You can find Fred on Twitter. His Twitter handle is in the description box. His YouTube channel is in the description box. And he said he was going to start putting some British subtitles on some of his videos about Brunel that he's got in French. As a last question, did France have an equivalent to Jimmy Savile or Jeffrey Epstein? Maybe Brunel was the closest to that. We got what's his name? Jean recently. Not Jean. Gab. What was? Oh, the other guy was a friend of Brunel. We started out talking about him in episode 1, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll answer this question in 2 ways. First, you know, Jimmy Savile was obviously, you know, sponsored by the royal family, you know, so we've dealt with our royals, you know, a long time ago. That's what I'm gonna say. Well, pay for these guys' show, and maintain them, and keep them. That's up to you guys. I lived in your country. I love it. Absolutely love Britain. Nothing to do with the royals. What these guys is up to is, I don't know, and I don't want to know. But all I know is Savile was definitely under their wings, and all I know is if we were to compare Savile to one of our French. I don't think Savile can be compared with anyone because he was a no one that was so important to the royal. It's just mind blowing. He was a DJ, and the guys end up working and be close to the royal family. How do you explain that unless you're going to put a couple of young kids around, or in between that? So now in France we have obviously the big story that we have a lot of pedophile in France, and some of them have been obviously prosecuted. But I would say so far it's probably the Marc Dutroux affair, which was mainly in Belgium, but obviously kind of overline with France as well. And Marc Dutroux was a big name, a big affair in Europe, and it really involved many countries as well. And then we have a lot of pedocriminal that seems to have operation. They are French, but they have operation in Spain, and a lot of investigators have done some amazing work. They have the names, they're following them through. So there's a lot of work. We're tracking these guys. They're doing a tremendous work. So again, I'm very pleased that after all these years I've been away from my country, coming back and seeing this young generation going out there and say, look, this is not acceptable. We're going to go after these guys. And there is some good connections. I'm being contacted by Spanish investigators. We talk to each other in Europe. We're starting to come together now and starting to exchange ideas. And again, I'll take these opportunities, for anybody, especially in Switzerland, in Belgium, in Germany, in Spain, guys, we need to talk to each other. It's very important because this is not just a national thing. It's really, really international, even sometimes intercontinental. So we need to talk to each other and exchange information. Absolutely crucial to make a difference.
All right, huge thank you to Fred for sharing his knowledge with us once again. I'm actually filming podcasts all next week, so perhaps the next one will be in about 2 weeks' time. Still got loads and loads of pages of notes here that Fred has sent me. This is endless, the amount of stuff he knows about Jean-Luc Brunel. So looking forward to keeping it going. He's just such a great guest to talk to. Just got absolute positive energy just oozing out of him. It's a real pleasure to have you on, Fred. Thank you for spending your time with us this evening.
Thanks for having me, Sean. It's been a pleasure as usual, and I'll see you and I'll talk to you soon. And thank you to everyone for your support. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and if you want to support Fred, please go down in the description box, go on his Twitter, go on his YouTube and subscribe. Huge thank you to all the new subscribers on this channel. We're rapidly approaching 600,000. Hopefully we'll get 600,000 by the end of the year. And that will be the biggest FU ever to the trolls. So help us combat the trolls by subscribing. And huge thank you to people who've gone down in the description box and checked out our other socials, donation links, and all of our own playlists. We've got Epstein playlist, 400 videos, Royal Family playlist, True Crime podcast, you name it. So it's always a great pleasure. You have a fantastic rest of your week, Fred.
Yeah, I will. I've got a lot of things coming up, so I'll keep you updated anyway. And thank you again for having me, Sean. Thank you. All the best to everyone.
You're welcome. I'm going to end this now.